People, what is the most scandalous secret you've kept from your partner? Story 1. I had relations with an S-worker and never told my girlfriend. A few years ago, I was still a kissless virgin. I met a Canadian girl online and quickly became infatuated with her. We talked every day for almost a year, and she became my best friend. One night, the moment just felt right, so I made a move, and we made things official. We tried to make a long-distance relationship work, but eventually she moved on, and we broke up. After that, she ghosted me on all platforms. I never met her in real life, so I still held on to my V card. I used to dream every night that we reconciled and became friends again. Sometimes the dreams were of us doing it, sometimes just simple and normal. They always felt so vivid and real. But when I woke up, I felt an overwhelming emptiness inside, and soon after, life spiraled into a deep depression. Bonus confession, I reached a point where the pain from those dreams pushed me to off myself. It obviously didn't work. The next morning, I woke up expecting never to see another day, but my perspective on life shifted dramatically. I realized that all the things I had been so worried about really didn't matter to anyone but me. Determined to reinforce my new outlook, I decided to take a vacation with a group of friends and set a goal for myself. I wanted to prove once and for all that I had moved on from my ex and was ready to take the next step in my life. I decided that losing my V card would be the way to do that. So I researched a nearby sex worker spot. Australia has licensed professional spots, and after getting my friends completely drunk one night, I drove to the spot the next morning while they were all passed out, nursing hangovers. It honestly was a great experience. I lost my V card to a stunningly beautiful woman who was incredibly kind and understanding, knowing it was my first time. In the end, I had mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I regretted that I didn't lose my V card to someone I genuinely cared about. But on the other hand, I convinced myself that it was a way to get over my ex. Plus, let's be real, I was way out of her league. Fast forward a few years, I meet another amazing Canadian girl online, and we become really close friends. I haven't had a girlfriend since, and honestly, I don't go out much, so I haven't been with anyone since that trip. During one of our conversations, the topic of past intimate experiences came up, and she asked me how many partners I'd had. Looking back, I'm not sure why I did this, but I think I was worried she'd be turned off if I told her the truth about the S-worker or the fact that I wasn't a virgin. It sounds silly now, but at the time, I told her I was a kissless virgin, which was true for the kiss part, but a bit of a stretch for the virginity part. She was happy to hear this, and well, at the time, I only saw her as a friend, so I wasn't expecting to ever have to explain it. Turns out she likes me more than a friend, and I eventually felt the same way. We made it official. We're now working through the trials of a long-distance relationship. But because of what I'd said earlier, she believes that I'm a virgin and always brings it up when we talk about that kind of stuff. It doesn't really eat away at me, but at the same time, I feel like my integrity is chipped every time it comes up. I've been keeping it a secret for so long now, I think I will have to take it to the grave. I just feel like it has been too long to simply bring it up out of the blue now. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I've been having an affair for several years now. It's something I never imagined I'd do, especially after being completely faithful to my wife for decades. Things began to shift after she became ill during pregnancy. Her drive disappeared, and I patiently waited for it to return. She eventually recovered physically, but her interest in intimacy never came back. I brought it up gently, hoping for open communication. I even invested thousands into marriage counseling, trying to fix what felt broken. The counselor met with both of us and made it clear that change was needed, specifically on my wife's end. She was given exercises, readings, tasks to help rebuild the connection. But nothing came of it. She didn't do the homework. She told me she was reading the relationship books, but later I learned that wasn't true. Then came something that truly shifted my perception. She went on a 2-week work trip, and I was notified of an Amazon package she accidentally had delivered to our shared account, a vibrating toy addressed to her hotel. Until that point, I'd assumed she was just no longer an intimate person, but this told me otherwise. She still had that side, she just wasn't willing to share it with me. That discovery hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just about physical relations. It was about effort, intimacy, and partnership. It made me feel like I didn't matter in that part of her life anymore. And that changed something in me. I began to question whether keeping myself celibate in a relationship that felt one-sided was truly honorable or just self-denial. On my next business trip, I met someone by chance. We clicked, we talked for hours, and eventually she came back to my hotel. What happened between us wasn't just physical. It was the spark I'd been missing for years, the anticipation, the hunger, the feeling of being desired and wanting to please someone in return. We stayed in touch. I've seen her several times since, and the connection we have has brought back parts of me I thought were gone. I've experienced more emotional and physical intimacy with her than I have in the last 10 years of my marriage. So that's my scandalous secret. You don't have to like it, but I think it fits the bill. Story 3. My boyfriend wanted a three-score with my best friend, and now I want to leave him for her. I have been dating my boyfriend for 6 years. We were high school sweethearts. We had to do long distance a lot because I was active duty in the military and got deployed quite a bit. My contract finally ended, so I left. Once I got out, I got an apartment, and he moved in with me. My best friend Val came to visit, so she's staying with us for a month before she has to go back. She's my closest friend from the Army and the person I trust the most with everything in my life. We went through a lot serving together, and our bond is unbreakable. She's literally my ride or die. Her contract doesn't end till a few more months. Then she's getting out as well. My boyfriend's birthday came up, and he asked me for a three-score with Val. He said that's the only present he wants, and it's something we should experience before getting married. I was shocked, to say the least. I kept telling him no, but he kept persisting. Val is very attractive, like she could be a model attractive, and she is bi and has always been open and honest about it. I eventually agreed to it because I was honestly bi-curious but always pushed the feeling away before. I asked Val and she agreed to it but kept asking for reassurance to make sure I was really on board with it and not just doing it for my boyfriend. I told her it's what I wanted and not to worry about it. When we did it, everything changed. I'll spare the details, but I will say she mainly focused on me and barely let him touch her. She made sure I was okay with everything and really cared about how I felt. It felt so good to feel like I was really wanted and cared for, because sometimes with my boyfriend, it felt like he only cared about himself when we did it while I was left to finish off myself. It even felt like a chore with him sometimes, where I didn't get to enjoy it because he wasn't attentive to me, when I always did everything he liked and wanted, even if I didn't want to or didn't like it. The things she did to me, I've never felt this way before, and I can't forget about it. She even did aftercare, which my boyfriend rarely ever did, even though I communicated to him about it. After I do with my boyfriend, I usually felt like crap, like I was just being used and discarded with when he was done. But with her, I discovered new things about myself overall. It just felt more intimate and passionate with her than I ever have with my boyfriend, like I was also desired. The next morning, nothing was really awkward between us. We didn't really talk about it either. We all just had breakfast together and went on with our day, but it's all I could think about. My boyfriend didn't seem too happy or satisfied. I believe it's because he thought he would be the center of attention and both of us would be focused on him. I also think Val suspects something because she keeps asking me if I'm okay, but I keep brushing it off. I know I have to talk to both of them. I just don't know how to start. I'll keep you guys updated. Update: I talked to my boyfriend and told him how I felt about everything. He was angry and accused me of cheating with Val. He ended up giving me an ultimatum. I never really had a family growing up. My military buddies are the only people I've ever felt like a family, and they're the only ones who can understand and had similar experiences and seen what I seen, so I could never drop them. I told him I don't want to be with him, and he confessed to cheating on me while I was away on deployment many times. I don't care. I don't even feel sad. I'm just happy it's over with and I'm free. He went back to move in with his parents, since it's my apartment, and was blowing up my phone saying he'll change and asking for forgiveness, but I just blocked him. I also talked to Val. She said she wouldn't normally agree to three scores. She believes that physical relation is a special thing you only share with your partner. This was her first as well, but as some of you guessed right, she knew what she was doing and wanted to show me what I was missing and how I should feel. We talked about where that leaves us, and we decided to take it slow. She said she's always had feelings for me, but since this breakup is fresh, We should give it some time and she'll be waiting for me to figure everything out. I'm not going to jump into another relationship right away, but I know I've had feelings for her. I was just in denial. Story 4. I work in a hospital, so I have lots of weekdays off. I got bored one day and went to the casino since I haven't been in years. About 20 minutes in, I won tilde $5,000 on the slots. Immediately cashed out, and I chose to pay the taxes there on the spot. I took the rest home. A few weeks later, my wife had a conference in Vegas, and I tagged along so we could make a long weekend of it. On the day of her conference, I bought a drink and wandered around the strip doing nothing. When she got out of the conference that afternoon, I told her I won $5,000 on the slots. Of course, she was ecstatic because work had already paid for a room at the Cosmo, and she had like $100/day in per diem. So all that cash was spent on eating at Michelin-starred restaurants and going to shows for free. I've never told her I won it at the dumpy casino 20 minutes from our house. Story 5. One time, I was driving my husband's car and trying to find a nearby park. As I was making a turn, I glanced over to read a small directional sign instead of keeping my eyes fully on the road. In that split second of distraction, I gently bumped into a guardrail. I was going super slow, so when I got to the park, I hopped out to check for damage. To my relief, or so I thought, I didn't see anything wrong with the car. I figured I'd gotten lucky. Fast forward a few weeks, my husband took the car to visit family, and one of his relatives pointed out a pretty noticeable dent on the front. He came home and told me about it, saying he thought someone must have hit his car while it was parked. I nodded along, not thinking much of it, until he actually showed me the dent. The second I saw it, I knew that had to be from the guardrail. It turns out I'm just not the best at checking the whole front of a car. I must have looked too quickly and missed the damage. By the time I realized what had happened, it had been weeks and I hadn't mentioned anything because I genuinely didn't know there was damage. At that point, I just couldn't bring myself to fess up. It's been 3 years. The dent is still there, a good foot wide. And every time I see it, I get that quiet little reminder and still haven't said a word. Story 6. I used to live a completely different life. I spent 3 years in prison and was a career criminal before that, mainly theft and burglary. When I got into a relationship with this incredible woman, I didn't tell her. Not because I wanted to deceive her, but because I was terrified she'd leave the moment she found out. Eventually, she did her own digging, found out about my past through a background check, and ended things. And honestly, I can't blame her. I was right. She told me herself that she wouldn't have dated me if she'd known from the start. That stung, but I understood. I didn't hold it against her. Just because I've served my time and changed my life doesn't mean people owe me their trust or a shot at a relationship, especially someone like her, classy, successful, the kind of person who had every right to be selective. I knew I was punching above my weight, and I let my fear of rejection override my integrity. Icons typically don't date women of her level. Let's just say that. Let's keep it a buck. The average icons dates women who most men would say are trashy, fugly bitches. You want to see a room of unattractive women? Go into a prison visitation room. But yeah, it was wrong of me to keep that from her, not because she was always going to find out, but because it's the right thing to do, especially considering that the relationship was getting serious. After that amount of time, I should have told her, but I didn't because of cowardice. That was wrong of me, and I've always been upfront about it ever since. No hiding. And that honesty led me to someone incredible. I'm now in a relationship with an amazing woman who, like me, has come a long way from where she started. Her past mirrors mine in a lot of ways. She's worked hard to grow and heal, just like I have, and we're both better people now because of it. If I was still the person I used to be, she wouldn't be with me. And if she hadn't changed, I wouldn't be with her either. We found each other at the right time. Two people who've owned their mistakes, done the work, and finally met on common ground. Story 7. I had a secret gay love affair. I need to get something off my chest, and this feels like as good a place as any to do it. I'm a 41-year-old music teacher at a relatively small high school. While I'm openly gay, most of the students aren't aware of it. I never imagined I'd find myself in a workplace relationship. But about 12 years ago, someone who would come to mean everything to me joined the staff. From the start, we were always friendly. But after about 3 years, I started to notice something different. Our interactions felt increasingly flirty. At first, I didn't know how to interpret it, especially since he was already in a relationship with a female colleague. But the flirting escalated, became more obvious, more intense. Then one evening, I was in my classroom late, wrapping up some work when he walked in. He leaned in and tried to kiss me. I nearly kissed him back, but I stopped myself. I couldn't ignore the fact that he was already involved with someone else. The flirting didn't stop after that moment. About 6 weeks later, we spent our first night together. It happened after a staff party, after a few too many drinks. We ended up back at his place. We spent the night making out, caught up in the moment and everything that had been building between us, and then started to give me a blowy. He told me he was going to end his relationship with the female teacher. He then continued to blow my flute. It was by far the best blowy I've ever gotten. It felt so right. After about 10 minutes, we were both fully bare on his couch in his apartment. He then grabbed me by the hips and swung me around, and then we did it. After that night, we found it impossible to stay away from each other. Over the next 7 years, we continued our relationship in secret, sometimes even at school. Oddly enough, things became easier to hide once he began dating a woman. He had the perfect cover. I was completely attached. I couldn't bring myself to walk away from what we had, even if it was complicated and hidden in the shadows. So we kept going on and off, while he continued building his life. Just a month before his wedding, we shared one last intensely passionate moment in the storage closet of the music room. By that point, he had been promoted to vice principal and was also the head coach of the football team, so keeping our relationship secret became even more crucial. Last year, he had a baby daughter with his wife and told me he wanted to break it off. I handled it badly and was asked to take a year's leave and consider whether it would be wise to return. He also attempted to get a restraining order for him and his family, but it fell through. This love affair has cost me my job and broke my heart. The students at the school are still unaware of the whole affair. Story 8. I'm sleeping with my girlfriend's mom. I have been dating my girlfriend for 3 years and banging her mom for a few months. We grew up across the street from each other, so I've known her entire family for years. Her stepdad is like a father figure to me. I would never do anything to hurt him. Anyways, my girlfriend takes after her mom with her smooth caramel skin and voluptuous curves that she didn't get until about a month ago, so I'm not with her for her body. She didn't get her mom's gorgeous mocha waves. Growing up, my girlfriend Lila always had a crush on me, but I didn't reciprocate until recently because of our age difference. Her mom, Sydney, used to babysit me and was honestly such a mother figure after my mom passed away. A couple of months ago, Lila refused to have intimate relations with me, and I got mad, so I went downstairs where Sydney was in the kitchen cooking tamales. She could tell I was frustrated, and she asked me what's wrong. I told her about what happened with Lila, and she felt bad, saying how no girl should ever deny a man of service. Then she got on her knees. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me she was making up for her daughter, and then asked what I wanted to do. I told her I wanted to bang. She told me to go upstairs, and then she came up a few minutes later. I think she was finishing up the tamales, so they didn't burn, but I don't really know or care because she was bare when she came into the room. And then we had the best bang of my life. I have never felt such a deep connection with anyone like that before. We've been doing it for months now. Should I tell my girlfriend? What about her stepdad? Edit. Sydney is pregnant, and we don't know if it's my baby or not. She is afraid to tell her husband. I am not telling my girlfriend until I know for sure, because no way am I breaking up with her for no reason. Edit 2. I found out Lila is sleeping with her stepbrother. He's 23. I don't blame her. He has a nice body. Edit 3. I am the father, and I think I am in love with my girlfriend's stepbrother, because me and Michael were close growing up and did a few experiments when we were younger. Recently, my old feelings have all resurfaced, and I can't hide them anymore. Edit 4. Sydney gave birth, and Michael rejected me for his stepsister, so he broke bro code. You don't date your friend's exes, Michael. Story 9. One of my ex-girlfriends ended up moving to the small city where I was stationed for work. At the time, I was just a grunt working out in the oil fields. The biggest thing in that town was a Christian university, kind of the heart of the place. Right across from the university on the main road was this little strip with about 5 or 6 bars. You can probably imagine the kind of chaos that unfolded when a bunch of religious college kids, all bottled up and repressed, ended up partying at the same bars as a bunch of roughneck oil field workers aged 19 to 22. It was wild. In the middle of all that, I met this amazing girl. We hit it off right away and ended up dating for quite a while. Things were going great until she asked me to come home with her for Christmas and meet the family. It was pretty obvious from the moment her dad saw me that, well, I wouldn't go so far as to say he hated me, but he definitely really didn't like me. First thing he did after we met, he left. Just straight up walked out and didn't come back for a few hours. I never told her, but that night, he actually offered me $5,000 to break up with her. He'd gone to the bank and pulled out the cash, like he was ready to seal the deal. At the time, I was 21 and 5 grand was a lot of money to me, but I was stubborn, maybe a little too idealistic, and I genuinely cared about this girl. I think I told him something like, she might only be worth $5,000 to you, but she's priceless to me. It sounds super cringy now, looking back, but I meant it. We ended up staying together for about another year before I got transferred to a different job site, and life took us in different directions. Story 10. I slept with my wife's affair partner's wife, and I am divorcing her soon. We got married nearly 3 years ago. About a year ago, I started noticing signs that something wasn't right. My suspicions were confirmed the day I saw her coworker's car parked outside our house. I ended up hiring a private investigator, and soon I had solid evidence that she was having an affair. Naturally, I was furious. Not long after, I got a call from the coworker's wife. She had found out about the affair too. She had some of their text messages. I, on the other hand, had full documentation of their meetups. We began talking and eventually teamed up to confront them. We saw each other often, sharing stories and piecing everything together. She told me she had suspected her husband was cheating since she was pregnant. They have 3 kids together. Then something unexpected happened. Fueled by hurt, betrayal, and honestly, a bit of impulsive anger, we ended up sleeping together. It was meant to be revenge, but it didn't stop there. We kept seeing each other, and physically, there was undeniable chemistry. In fact, she made me feel seen and appreciated in ways I hadn't felt in a long time. What stings the most isn't even the affair itself. It's the way my wife talked about us in those messages. She and her affair partner laughed at his wife's appearance, made cruel comments about her body, and even mocked my fertility struggles. Reading those words broke something in me. I couldn't believe the woman I married would speak like that, especially about another woman and about me. I don't regret what happened with the coworker's wife. It gave me clarity, the intimacy, the validation. It was everything I'd been missing. Unlike my wife, she was genuinely attentive and passionate. Now the woman I've been seeing wants to come clean. We're both tired of living in the shadows of our revenge. At first it was about getting even, but now we're just emotionally exhausted. I already have the divorce papers ready. Thankfully, there are no shared accounts or assets between my wife and me, so the process should be straightforward. Things might be harder for her and her husband, especially with kids involved, but she's strong, she has options. I know I sound like an awful person, but I have already checked out of my marriage. Story 11. I made out with my boyfriend's roommate while we were blackout drunk. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I've been officially dating my boyfriend Jeff, who's 24, for about 2 months, although we've been seeing each other romantically for about 8 months now. Jeff has 2 roommates, Tony and Peter. Peter is dating my best friend Rose, and I'm pretty close with Tony as well. On top of that, we all work together. We're all really good friends and pretty intertwined in each other's lives. Jeff is a really great guy, sweet and thoughtful, and he's had a crush on me since I started working at our job 2 years ago. The thing is, I enjoy doing spontaneous activities like walking around stores, exploring new places, and going out, while Jeff would rather stay in. When I manage to get him out, he often seems in a rush, walking ahead of me and trying to leave as quickly as possible. Sometimes he gets quiet, and I start feeling like I'm just bothering him when he doesn't respond. I've brought this up to him a few times, telling him that if we're just too different, this might not work. It's not that he's doing anything wrong, but we might not be compatible in the way we enjoy our free time. He tells me he's trying to change for me and wants to get better at going out and having fun, but he doesn't really plan anything, and our schedules don't line up well. He also doesn't take great care of himself, mostly eating fast food and playing video games when he's not working. I enjoy video games too, so it doesn't bother me, but I try to encourage him to take better care of himself. Anyway, I'd say Tony, Jeff's friend and roommate, has become one of my closest friends over the past few months. I've always been good at making guy friends, and I've had many throughout my life. I enjoy hanging out with both men and women and having a variety of friends. Tony and I often hang out, shopping, grabbing food, visiting card stores, and he usually just tags along wherever I want to go. My recent interest in collecting cards has led to us spending even more time together since he showed more enthusiasm for my hobby than Jeff does. I started hanging out with Tony more, especially since every time I asked Jeff to join me, it seemed like he wasn't enjoying it or didn't talk much. I still spent a lot of time with Jeff, mostly at home watching TV shows, but Tony's schedule was more flexible, and it was nice to have a guy friend who treated me normally. We never flirt, touch, or suggest anything more between us. We mostly talk about the girls he's trying to date, and I even help him with responses on his dating apps. Tony and I decided to hit the bar on Saturday, something we've done a few times before and always had a great time. We ended up drinking way too much and both blacked out for parts of the night. I've never been that drunk before. Afterward, we went back to their apartment, and we were just sitting on the living room floor, joking around and laughing. The next thing I remember is us stopping what we were doing and realizing we couldn't keep going because, apparently, we'd been kissing. We ended up going to his room, and all I can recall are flashes of moments in my mind. We continued kissing, but nothing else happened. At one point, he told me he loved me, and I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up in Jeff's bed, instantly feeling mortified. Slowly, the memories of the night came flooding back. I felt sick to my stomach. I've never done anything remotely close to cheating in my life. I don't talk to random guys. I don't flirt with anyone but my boyfriend, and I've never kissed anyone else while in a relationship. Jeff noticed a mark on my neck and asked about it. Apparently, I had a hickey, which I have no memory of. I lied about it and left. I immediately called my best friend Rose, Peter's girlfriend, and the one dating the third roommate, Tony. I told her what happened and how completely lost I felt, and she shocked me by saying she already knew. Apparently, Peter had walked out and saw us kissing, and then even put his ear to Tony's door and heard us inside. I was mortified, humiliated, and guilty. How could I have let this happen? How did it escalate so quickly? My whole adult life, I've always said that cheaters deserve no mercy, that it's stupid and cruel. I couldn't believe that I had become part of something I've always condemned. I told Tony we needed to meet up and talk. We both shared what we remembered, but neither of us could recall who initiated the first kiss. We both admitted that we barely remembered anything. I know it doesn't really matter because it continued in his room, but based on who I am, my morals, and what I want for myself, I truly don't believe I initiated what happened. That's not an excuse, though. I still participated. I asked him about the "I love you" part because it meant a lot to me. He confessed it was genuine, that he'd had feelings for me for a long time, but once Jeff and I started dating, he pushed those feelings aside and just wanted to stay friends. I had no idea he felt that way about me. I usually pick up on that stuff, so I felt incredibly naive for not noticing. I told him that I didn't feel the same, and that I'm sorry, but nothing could ever happen between us. Tony completely understood. We talked everything through, and we both agreed that maybe we shouldn't tell Jeff. We both acknowledged that it was a horrible, messed up mistake, that it wasn't something we planned or expected, and that it would never happen again. The fact that I could barely remember it made me feel so disconnected from the whole event. I had never thought of Tony in that way, and I just assumed we could move on, not only for our own sake but for the sake of all of us living and working together. My next big mistake was going to dinner to meet his family the next day. I could barely look them in the eyes, and I was so sick to my stomach that I couldn't eat. I shouldn't have gone, but at the time, I just thought it was a mistake I could move past. The next day, Peter and Rose said all four of us needed to talk. Tony and I went to their apartment, and we had a sit-down conversation. We're really lucky to have such good friends who only want the best for all of us. They both said they thought we should tell Jeff what happened. At first we resisted, offering our reasons why, But as the conversation went on, we both knew deep down that we had to tell him. He deserved to know. And Peter and Rose didn't deserve to carry that secret forever. They told us they knew we weren't bad people, just people who made a bad choice. Peter also said something that really made me think. He said that, while he believed us that it wasn't planned and didn't mean anything, maybe Tony had subconsciously filled a void in my relationship with Jeff that got too blurry. The part of me that wanted to have fun with my boyfriend may have been getting that from Tony, even if he's just my friend. I then had a private conversation with Rose, where she suggested that this might be the perfect time to break up with Jeff. A lot of people have asked me why I'm still with him, especially since I'm often seen out with Tony. People also know that I'm almost finished with college, while Jeff doesn't have any clear goals or plans for his future and hasn't continued his education. I understand that everyone moves at their own pace and that college isn't the only path, but when I ask him about his future, he has no answers. It worries me. Rose thinks that Jeff is holding me back and that I'm changing in a negative way, becoming more reclusive and distant because of him. I care about Jeff so much. He has such a good heart, he's genuinely sweet, and he treats me well. But at the same time, I feel like this is some kind of wake-up call. I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to justify my actions based on our relationship issues, but I'm trying to address two separate problems here. I know my relationship better than anyone else, and while I won't let outside opinions be the deciding factor, when multiple people question why we're together, it has to mean something. I've never felt more guilt in my life, and Tony and I both knew we had to tell Jeff the truth. We drove over to their apartment, sat him down, and told him what happened. I couldn't stop shaking. Jeff is very rational, and he just asked, why? But we didn't have an answer. Tony left, and I talked to Jeff alone. I apologized, making it clear that this was in no way his fault, that Tony and I had made the biggest mistake of our lives, and we were deeply sorry. I brought up something Peter had said, that maybe I wasn't satisfied with certain parts of the relationship, got blackout drunk, and made a horrible decision. While I know cheating can never be justified, I thought it was important to be honest about what might have contributed to it. I told him that he doesn't seem to enjoy doing things with me anymore, and he said I don't really ask him to anymore. I explained that it was because he didn't seem to enjoy it when I did. He asked me if it was so bad that even if he didn't want to go, just going because I wanted to would have made him want to be there. I told him it wasn't that simple. It wasn't wrong for him not to enjoy things, but I also didn't think it was wrong for me to want my boyfriend to get excited about doing things with me. I assured him that this had nothing to do with Tony, that I wasn't interested in him in that way, and that I wasn't asking for his forgiveness just to turn around and say it wasn't working. He was very understanding, and it was the hardest conversation I've ever had. He then talked to Tony privately. Jeff said he needed some time to think, and I completely understood. Tony and I talked again today. I asked him how his conversation with Jeff went, and he told me he was honest about his feelings for me, but how he pushed them aside. Even after telling Jeff that, he kept asking, why? And I can't blame him for that. I can't imagine how it must have felt for him to hear that from two people he trusted so much. Jeff would always joke about me and Tony hanging out, but we would laugh it off because we were all friends and trusted each other deeply. Tony said that no matter how things go with Jeff and me, he and I can't hang out for a long time, or possibly ever again. And I completely agree with that. He also mentioned that before leaving their apartment, he heard Jeff telling his brother and friends on Discord, I don't have any right to tell him who he can or can't talk to about this, since I'm not the victim here, but just knowing that makes the idea of possibly staying with Jeff so much harder. The embarrassment and shame from his family whom I just met are tough to handle. Maybe I deserve it, but if Jeff and I stay together, I know I'll have to do everything I can to regain his trust. I just want to come to terms with my mistake, learn from it, and grow. I'm ready to talk to Jeff whenever he's ready. I just wanted to lay everything out there. I think it's a bad sign that something like this happened, and that parts of my relationship with Jeff don't seem to be compatible, but at the same time, I really, really like him. I just don't know how this will all work out. If anyone has had a similar experience or has advice, I would really appreciate hearing it. I'm not looking for people to make me feel better. I just want advice or insight into how to handle this. Thank you. Story 12. I propositioned my maid with money for a good time but didn't go through with it yet. The other day, I got a late start after my wife and kids had already left for school. I got up, threw on some gym pants and a t-shirt since I planned to get a quick workout in before heading to work. As I was going about my morning, the maid came in. I was fully dressed, of course. She's smiled at me a few times in the past, and I've always just smiled back, thinking it was nothing more than a polite exchange. For some strange reason, I had an undying stiffy since I got up that day. It was peeking out of my gym pants, and honestly, I was admiring my own stiffy in the mirror when she walked in. She saw me, looked at my face, then at my stiffy, then said hello and smiled. I walked away thinking this is kinda rude, but the stiffy wouldn't go away. I stepped out of the room while she finished making the bed. A few minutes later, I went back in to grab my wallet and phone before heading out. She looked at me and brought up that she needed some money, said her house needed a few repairs. I asked her how much and she just said, anything helps. Then I said something, no wait, my dong said something that I kinda regret now. You can ask for the amount, and I'll tell you how you can repay me for it. She gave me a subtle smile, almost like she'd been hoping I'd say that. I didn't fully register what I'd implied at the time. Then she stepped away to check where the other maid was. Yeah, I've got two working for me. When she came back, she leaned in and quietly said the other maid would be coming in soon, so we'd have to wait until next time. She whispered that she'd come up with an excuse to delay her next time, so we could have a little time alone. She then stared at my stiffy and gave a big smile. The other maid walked in, so I stepped out and let them get on with their work. I kept thinking about how awesome it would be to face bang that cute face of hers. On my way to work, I thought it would be so cool to see those big jugs of her. And then clarity struck. This woman is going to do it with me because her house needs repairs. I felt horrible. I'm an a-hole in a lot of ways. I've paid for physical relations a lot of times before, but this is slightly different. Even though I know she thinks I'm cute and flirts with me, but that could be because she needs the money. Also, she's working for me. Who am I to use money to wave my dong at her bouncy jugs? Anyway, I'll have to confront her again alone on Monday, at which point I'll hand her the agreed on sum for her house repairs and then walk away. I'll update you guys then. Story 13. My girlfriend had a lot of partners before me. Got disgusted by her, so I decided to even the score. I felt better and confident in the relationship than ever. My girlfriend and I have been together for 5 months now. This is my first post, and it's a long one, but I just wanted to share. From the moment we met, we had an instant connection. It genuinely felt like love at first sight. I felt like she was the one, my soulmate. We could talk for hours without getting bored, and being around her just felt right. She makes me incredibly happy, and I love her deeply. During our first month together, she asked how many partners I'd had. I told her she was my second. She told me I was her 17th, most of which were one-night stands. At the time, I honestly didn't care about the number. I'd only been with my ex before her, while she'd had more experience. It didn't bother me. I was just happy to be with her. We are very open with each other. Never kept any secrets from each other. She told me she used to bang other guys because she wanted to feel loved. But what she did wrong was telling me her past experiences. She told me unnecessary details of her past intimate encounters when we were together. She told me that she used to go backstage of her school hall and bang, and the whole school knows about this incident. She told me all about her banging sessions in graphic detail and how in her relationships guys would not bother meeting her if there is no banging, and she gave in to those kinds of people. She told me how the guys she used to be together with get angry if she declines his advances. And she also used to have one friends with benefit as well before she met me. She did it without any protection with all the guys she banged. I eventually told her how I felt. I explained that constantly bringing up the past was painful for me. It really affected me emotionally. Knowing some of the things she went through made it hard not to feel hurt or protective. I looked at the woman I love and struggled with the thought of how others had treated her, like she was just a passing moment rather than someone incredible. I told her that from my perspective, it seemed like she had let people in too easily, and that it hurt to think she didn't always protect her own worth. I also made it clear that if infidelity were ever to happen between us, it would be the end of the relationship. I said this not as a threat, but because I value trust and loyalty deeply. She told me that doing with me is the best. I made her pass out a couple of times, which she said none of the other guys she had relations with managed to do, and many other things that only I've made her experience. But knowing about her past experiences has been emotionally difficult for me. Sometimes I struggle with intrusive thoughts and insecurity, like I chose someone who wasn't very selective with who she let in. Imagining her with other people in that way affects me deeply, and I hate that it does. It started to mess with my head over time. The way I see her has changed, not because I want it to, but because I can't stop comparing our relationship to what she's already been through. It makes what we share now feel less unique, like some of the things I thought were special between us have already been experienced with others. She once told me she'd never had someone care for her the way I do, that I'm the best boyfriend she's ever had, and that she's proud to show me off to her friends. Hearing that meant a lot, and it hurt too, in a strange way, because she herself is such a kind and loving person. It made me sad to think she never received the kind of love she gives so freely. She shared with me that she regrets being with the people she was intimate with in the past. But I'll admit, those thoughts still weigh heavily on my mind. I opened up to her about it, and it hurt her. She didn't know I felt that way, and I told her I was uncomfortable knowing so much about her past. At first, I didn't think her number of past partners would matter to me. But what really cut deep were some of the things she shared in detail, moments with her exes that I just wasn't ready to hear. Like how she once described an experience in a way that felt too vivid, or how she compared me to someone from her past during an intimate moment. I've never disrespected her or pushed her boundaries, and I've always tried to be understanding and kind, but in that moment it hurt, and I let my insecurities and intrusive thoughts get the better of me. I opened up to her and admitted that I feel insecure in our relationship. I've only had one previous partner, while she's had more. I realize now that our views on intimacy aren't exactly the same. To me, it is deeply emotional, something I only want to share with someone who's incredibly close to me. Knowing she shared those experiences with others, casually or in search of love, is something I've struggled to come to terms with. I've truly wanted to accept her past, but the thoughts kept returning, clouding how I saw her and how I felt about our relationship. It made me question everything. I didn't know how to process those emotions, and instead of dealing with them in a healthy way, I tried to bury them. One night, I went out drinking with friends, hoping to forget it all. I met someone at a club, and in our drunken state, things escalated. We ended up spending the night together. After that, I started reconnecting with women who'd shown interest in me before, ones I had kept at a distance out of respect for my relationship. I even started using dating apps like Tinder to distract myself further. Eventually, it became a pattern, a way of coping that I now realize was destructive. I told my girlfriend the truth. I admitted to cheating multiple times and told her I even had a casual arrangement with someone at the time. I gave her the option to walk away, thinking she would. But she didn't. She forgave me. She said she still loves me even after everything I did. She told me she understood that my actions, as hurtful as they were, came from a place of deep insecurity and pain, not from a lack of love. Am I proud of what I did? No. Am I a jerk? Maybe. But if I'm being honest, I don't fully regret it. Not because I think it was right, but because it forced me to confront my emotions and the damage they were doing to both of us. Things between my girlfriend and me are really good now. We're genuinely happy together, and I've come to realize that I needed the experiences I went through, not because what I did was right, but because they forced me to confront and process feelings I hadn't fully understood. If I hadn't gone through that internal struggle, I probably would have continued resenting her for something that wasn't even her fault. The negative thoughts about her past would have eventually driven a wedge between us and caused a breakup. I never really wanted, but now I've made peace with it. Her past is her own, and it doesn't define who she is to me now. Other people being part of her history doesn't matter anymore. I'm the one she's with, and I'm the one she chose. I've also come to accept that her experiences shaped her into the person I fell in love with. Yes, our values around physical intimacy are different, and I know that I might choose differently in the future if compatibility on that front is more important to me. But I don't want to punish her for being who she is. She's done nothing wrong. If anything, I'm grateful this all came up early on. It gave me the chance to grow and understand myself better. I love her deeply, and I truly believe she's an amazing partner. I've started appreciating her more than ever, seeing the full picture of who she is, That said, I'm still seeing my FWB. I know that contradicts everything I just said, and it's something I need to figure out, whether it's a sign I'm still avoiding full commitment or if there's a part of me still working through trust and intimacy issues. I'm not perfect, and this journey has been far from linear, but I'm trying to understand myself better every step of the way. Story 14. I lost my V card to an S worker after a night of drinking. So my story goes like this. I'm a 20-year-old guy who up until now had never had a girlfriend or any kind of intimate experience. For a long time, I didn't think much of it. Everyone moves at their own pace, right? But I found myself surrounded by friends who constantly talked about their intimate life like it was the pinnacle of life. One friend in particular really got under my skin. He eventually became my roommate, and he'd frequently talk about his weekend hookups, throwing in comments that made me feel like I was somehow less of a man for not having the same experiences. Sometimes the jabs were subtle, sometimes not. I tried to shrug it off, but over time his words sank in deeper than I wanted to admit. I started to internalize the idea that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, unattractive, or just destined to be alone. On the outside I kept it together, but inside I was battling anxiety, self-doubt, and loneliness. I started believing I was a loser. That's when things started to shift. I turned to the internet, first casually watching porn, but it escalated. I started paying for campsites and eventually began visiting clubs. I wasn't just looking for a hookup. I was desperate for connection, for validation, for something to fill the emptiness I was feeling. I spent way too much money and got caught up in a cycle I felt I couldn't talk to anyone about. I felt ashamed, like I was living a double life, one that I had to hide from everyone who mattered to me. Looking back, I know I was trying to fill a void with something that couldn't really satisfy what I truly needed. I didn't just want physical intimacy. I wanted to feel seen, valued, and connected. That realization hit me hard. I'm still working through all of it. But being honest about where I've been is the first step toward healing and building something real for myself. I thought this would help me, that maybe if I crossed that line, I'd become more confident with women. But the truth is, nothing changed. I still felt stuck. I still couldn't approach or talk to women without freezing up. Deep down, I believed I was meant to be alone. What hurt the most was that I had no one to turn to. No one to confide in, to reassure me, or to help me navigate how I was feeling. I felt like I was spiraling out of control. I kept telling myself to get it together, but I couldn't hold myself accountable. Not really. How could I when I didn't even respect myself? Eventually, it got worse. I started browsing S-workers' supply service websites, even the personal sections on Craigslist, hoping to find someone willing to sleep with me. I resisted the urge most of the time, but the thought was always there, lingering in the back of my mind. Then this past weekend happened. I was out drinking at a friend's place, and while I genuinely had fun, I was surrounded by couples, people laughing, holding hands, just being close, and I felt like an outsider. That walk home felt heavier than usual, and in my drunken state, feeling especially low and isolated, I called the supply service. When she arrived, it wasn't anything like I imagined. She didn't resemble the photos, and we barely understood each other, but I was desperate, not just for physical intimacy, but for something to make me feel wanted, seen, even if only briefly. We went through with it. It wasn't great. I told myself maybe the second time would be better, but I couldn't finish it, and eventually I paid her and she left. Then I just sat there, alone, and it hit me. What had I done? I'd convinced myself this would somehow change things, that I'd feel better, more confident, but I didn't. I felt ashamed, hollow, and deeply disappointed in myself. I had used someone, and in doing so, I felt like I had used myself too, allowed the pressure, loneliness, and fear to push me into something that only left me feeling worse. Now I carry this guilt in silence. I'm afraid to tell anyone I care about what I've done. I'm scared of how they'd see me. But more than that, I'm struggling with how I see myself. The only thing I can take away from this is that I shouldn't allow myself to be the folly of others, to be more assertive with others, to stop allowing my life and actions to be judged and dictated by those around me, and to actually find someone I care about instead of shagging anything that moves. I hope to get myself tested in the next week. Even though I used protection, I want to be sure this mistake won't destroy my future with potential partners. Story 15. I had relations with my mother's married boss while I was on a break with my boyfriend. I'm not really sure where to start, but here goes. My mom is one of the most respected team builders in the corporate IT world. Right now, she's working with an Australian man, let's call him Todd, who's building a company with the goal of eventually selling it. Together, they're absolutely crushing it. Todd isn't a stranger to our family. He actually worked with my stepdad about a decade ago. While we've only met in person once, about 6 years ago, I've seen him here and there during my mom's video calls, sometimes just waving hello or stepping into frame. Todd, 46, is one of the most magnetic people I've ever met. He has this incredible energy that just draws people in. It's infectious in the best way. I'm 23 now, and I've really gotten to know him over the past couple of months. While waiting for his new townhouse here in the States to be ready, he stayed with us for a bit, so we had a lot of time together. We genuinely enjoy each other's company. We've stayed up until 3 a.m. listening to music, talking, and sharing drinks more times than I can count. There's a playful vibe between us, light teasing, playful pinches, and the kind of warmth that feels easy and natural. I especially love the little moments, like when he leans in close to share something just for me, his arm around my waist in a way that feels both familiar and exciting. This weekend was my mom's birthday, and we threw a huge celebration. Todd stayed at our place while the rest of the guests found nearby hotels. The first night it happened, we were all in the kitchen having drinks, my stepfather included. Eventually, he called it a night and went to bed, leaving just Todd and me continuing to drink and hang out. One of the things I'm most known for is my deep knowledge of music, bands, songs, all of it. I'm usually the one on aux and often get compliments on my taste. Todd's a huge music lover too, so we started trading songs back and forth, each trying to impress the other with our picks. He was sitting across from me, and at one point he reached out and took my hand in his. Mine were cold, his were warm. He started rubbing them gently, trying to warm them up. I'd planned to pull away once the chill faded, but I realized I didn't want to let go. Later, when I stood up, probably to grab another drink, something in me wanted to sit on his lap, so I did. He didn't fight it. Instead, he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me. I haven't felt that attractive in a while. Then we went up to his room and banged. It was messy AF because we were so drunk. The next morning, we were both in the kitchen when my mom and stepdad were joking about the table being pushed against the stove. Todd and I exchanged a glance, and he raised his eyebrows and pursed his lips, a small, private gesture between us. In that moment, I knew everything was okay, and he didn't regret what had happened. I felt a sense of relief and happiness because despite the chaotic nature of that night, I had truly enjoyed it. Throughout the day, he didn't distance himself from me. I tried to give him space, not wanting to come across as clingy. It was hard because, before everything changed, we'd always been around each other, simply enjoying each other's company. Yesterday was my mother's party, and I decided to really dress up. I wore a short, hot pink dress, straightened my hair, and put on makeup, the whole shebang. I felt amazing and looked pretty fantastic too. With a tan from working outdoors, I was definitely looking close to perfect. I don't usually dress up like that, but knowing Todd would be there made me want to go the extra mile. I avoided sitting with him at dinner and kept our interactions to a minimum throughout most of the evening. But as dessert time rolled around, I noticed he stepped outside to smoke and caught my eye from across the room. He tapped his pocket where his cigarettes and lighter were, and I couldn't resist. I excused myself from my conversation and went outside. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You look beautiful, girl." My heart melted. Todd isn't what you'd call conventionally attractive. Honestly, I'd rate him a 2/10. But looks aren't everything. It's his personality that draws me in like a magnet, and in my eyes, that makes him all the more attractive. We smoked our cigarettes, swapped the gossip we'd gathered from our separate evenings, and shared a few laughs. As the conversation naturally paused, I opened my mouth to speak, but he beat me to it. He said something along the lines of, "I don't know what's more wrong, that you shagged your mother's boss or that I banged my employee's daughter." I chuckled and said, "Doesn't matter to me, we are both screwed if anyone finds out." He touched my waist gently and said that we should go back inside. We stuck together for the rest of the night at the venue. I'd occasionally have to say goodbye to people, but I always found my way back to Todd. One time when I returned, I noticed a row of glasses with small amounts of bourbon in each. He'd ask the bartender to help me figure out which one I liked best, so I'd know what to order in the future. Later, my cousin and his husband came over and invited us to head back to their place. We both eagerly agreed. When we got there, we were the only ones in the kitchen, so I put on some music, poured Todd some wine, and grabbed a drink for myself. When my mom and stepdad showed up, we were both a little disappointed, but we managed to nudge them toward bed. Finally, we were free to be ourselves. The music took over. Our minds seemed to sync, and every song was perfect. We played music for about 2 hours. I was sitting on the counter while Todd danced around the kitchen, being his goofy self, and I couldn't stop laughing. At one point, he came over and placed his hands on my hips. My cousin walked in to ask us to turn the music down, and I'm not sure if he noticed the moment, though I'm sure he did. We turned it down, and with the volume lowered, being close felt even better, especially with the speaker right next to us. I grabbed his face and kissed him, fully aware I'd crossed a line, but he didn't push me away. Instead, he turned his back to me, and I wrapped my arms around his neck and chest, kissing his ears and neck. He picked me up, sliding me off the counter like it was nothing, piggyback style. We made our way out to the screened-in porch, and I lifted my dress, and, well, things happened. We went back inside, though, worried someone might hear us. He tried to get me to sleep on the couch, but he couldn't resist touching me in ways that felt way too intimate. It was frustrating because we were both still so turned on. I got up, not wanting to go to bed, and this is the part I regret, whined a little, telling him I wanted to sleep with him. He said no, and I understood why. Our family friend was staying in the room across from Todd's, and I knew she'd hear everything, so we went our separate ways. This morning, I woke up feeling sad, knowing he'd be leaving today. Things felt normal and good, though. When we all said our goodbyes, he gave me a kiss on the cheek. Here's where things get messy. Todd's married with 3 kids and lives in Australia most of the time. I have a boyfriend of sorts, but I recently had a mental breakdown and left to stay with my mom and stepdad about a week ago. I really care for Todd, not necessarily in a romantic way, but as a person. We spend time watching TV shows, cooking together, talking about books, and so much more. I genuinely enjoy being around him, and I want to respect his space and his time, so I won't try to contact him or see him unless it happens naturally. At this point, I'll see him when I see him, and it's painful. I feel awful about being the other woman, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm not the first person he's been with outside of his marriage. Still, it's not right. I don't care if we never sleep together again. I just want to be around him. He makes me feel happy and valued. That's all I've got. I can't tell anyone about this, and he's too old and busy to be on Reddit. My mom just took a call from him, and I'm listening to him speak on speaker right now. Just hearing his voice makes me feel so happy, but also so incredibly sad. If you've read all of this, thank you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.